Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Mike Elko, the Texas A&M Aggies land another commitment in the 2025 class. This one coming from three-star defensive lineman Chace Sims, and an under-the-radar prospect, right? Only a three-star according to 24/7 Sports. There are two things that I really like about Chace Sims. I think it starts with just getting these kind of bodies at the high school level. And we saw so many programs have to go to the transfer portal and pay a premium for these kind of bodies in the transfer portal. I think Mike Elko's looking at it and saying, we got to get these kind of frames and bodies on the high school trail, get them in the program, get them coached up so you're not in such a bad spot like we saw so many teams across the country. And I think secondly, when you get into Chace Sims specifically, this is probably not a defensive lineman, at least in my mind. And I could be wrong. I would love for him to prove me wrong. That's going to be a guy that goes 10 plus sacks, 15 plus tackles for a loss in a season. I don't think he's going to be a game wrecker. He's not going to be a guy that lights up the box score, but I think where his true value is going to be is, kind of that interior defensive lineman at least kind of reminds me like McKinley Jackson, who's not going to reflect their production and talent on the box score, but it's going to be a guy that lets the rest of your defense play at a really high level, right? Eating up double teams, winning at the point of attack, letting your linebackers come downhill and impact the game at a high level. You look at guys like McKinley Jackson, maybe even Isaiah Rakes last year, who did a really nice job of that kind of stuff. It's no coincidence that Edgerrin Cooper was one of the best linebackers in the country. You need these kind of bodies that don't always get a ton of national media recognition, but do some of the dirty work. And Chace Sims at 6'2.5", 305, kind of that squattier frame like McKinley Jackson, I think can kind of play a very similar role to what McKinley Jackson and Isaiah Rakes have done for Texas A&M. Like this commitment, an under the radar one, but I think a guy that's going to give a lot of value to Texas A&M over the next couple of years. Before we get into the film, just want to say thank you to you guys. It's been a blast talking this program on the recruiting trail. All the support you guys continue to show truly does mean a lot. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into Chace Sims. And I kind of started off by saying I don't think he's going to be a guy that goes for 10 plus sacks, 15 plus tackles for a loss. That is what he did during his junior year of high school, right? 86 tackles, 11 sacks, 18 tackles for a loss. I mean, some really impressive production from a guy that was primarily working on the inside of the defensive line. I think the second thing you'll note when we get into the film is plays with low pads and plays a wide variety of positions on the defensive line. You'll see him play the nose. You'll see him play the 3. You'll even see him play the 5 at certain points. And again, I don't think he plays the edge at all when he gets to Texas A&M, but he's a guy that you can move along the inside of the defensive line and ask him to do a couple of different things. And you get into the film, and again, I think the first thing you notice, he always comes out low. And you talk about what made McKinley Jackson be so good at the line of scrimmage, low pads. I mean, when you have that squat of your body, you might have the juiced up athleticism that some of the other guys do, but you can play with low pads and you can win at the point of attack. I mean, he's firing out of his stance low, knows how to use his hands to get disengaged, and then we'll go track down the quarterback. A guy that does give you some pass rush juice, and I don't mean to say that he's not going to be a force in terms of tackles for loss and sacks. That's kind of the way I see him playing at the collegiate level, but a guy that does flash kind of some sneaky athleticism for his size, a guy that when you do give him some opportunities to get after the passer, he certainly can. Really good hands. I mean, we're going to split a double team here, go find the quarterback. He can do a couple of different things that you like. And again, the film is not necessarily projecting, or I guess I should say projecting a elite caliber athlete on the inside of the defensive line. This isn't going to be a guy that's going to go top 10 in the NFL draft, but it's a guy that does do some of the dirty work. He plays physically at the point of attack and all of those things. Like these kind of bodies, here's playing the 0. These kind of bodies mean something to opposing for defenses. And I think that's kind of the value you get with a guy in Chace Sims. You take a look at Texas A&M, what they're doing in this 2025 class. One, Marco Jones, hopefully committing to Texas A&M relatively soon. But you take a look at this class and say it's built along the line of scrimmage, right? We start scrolling down and say, you got a bunch of offensive linemen, Jonte Newman, Marcus Garcia, you got a couple defensive linemen, Landon Rick, Connor Carty. I mean, it is clear that Mike Elko wants a lot of depth, a lot of competition along the lines of scrimmage. And a guy like Chace Sims, I think, going to give you some of that depth and some of that dirty work for Texas A&M. We'll cut it there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. Again, all the support means the absolute world. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.